Hey guys, welcome to Get It Right with Mike and Trey and now Terry as well. This is our first video version of the podcast. Trey and I, we've done probably 14, 15 episodes.
Something like that.
Audio only. And so
which is good for the audience because you don't have to look at us that way.
Yeah.
Terry's kind of an attractive guy, and I say that with a staunch record of heterosexuality there. But he helps add to it here.
You know what? That means that you're just even more comfortable in your skin as a heterosexual male. Okay, that's okay. God, we can recognize when these guys. Hey, they're handsome guys. I don't want to use attractive. I don't know. Maybe, but whatever. So.
Show's over, folks.
Yeah. Well, that was quick. How to ruin a podcast in 37 seconds.
I like chicks so much I married one. So anyway.
so you and all the lesbians have something in common. You both like women.
Yeah, we have something totally in common. Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, so this show.
So many things you could talk about.
So for those of you that maybe this is your first experience with Get It Right, Trey and I started this podcast a couple of months ago. Yeah. I guess it's been now.
It's been more than that.
And
probably been about 4 months ago.
Four months ago. I've lost track.
I'll tell you when it was. It was started our first podcast. We were talking about the special session.
Oh, that's
of
right.
Texas coming up. Yeah. So that would have been probably June.
See, I forgot because I've drank so much since then. No. If I drank as much as some of these people think I do, I'd have been dead 20 years ago. I don't drink anywhere near. Very little. Trey is total. Everything is just totally straight with him. He doesn't do anything. Clean living all the way.
That's
same,
right.
Same thing with Terry. Me, on the other hand, I quit giving a damn. So anyway, not really. Yes, sort of.
Welcome to the Clean Living Hour.
So anyway, we spend
not NPR.
Coffee talk.
If you're doing NPR, you have to go. Yes, welcome to the podcast.
I can't listen to that crap.
Yeah, we have to modulate. We modulate our voices enough so we can't be on NPR.
I cannot listen to it. I've tried. I have tried.
Why?
Just to say that I did.
Oh, okay.
I
didn't know if there was a particular reason.
No, I just sometimes you want to see what the other side is saying. You want to kind of get a feel for what the other side's talking about, and solid 68 seconds into it, I'm done. I've had enough of this crap. We're done. It's like CNN. I can't take CNN seriously anymore. I just can't.
Them MSNBC have just gone off the rails.
I was watching the interview of somebody. What was I watching? It was a CNN. It was the black lady from the assistant or lieutenant governor for Virginia.
Winsome Sears.
Yeah, she was on with some CNN host, and the CNN host is just sitting there very staunch.
Oh yeah, very stiff.
And I'm like, and you're acting. You look like you're trying to be unbiased.
Yeah,
but
what is the deal with that anyway?
I don't know.
Well, it's bad when you're calling this black lady the face of or. Joy Reid was the one who said that she was moving her mouth. She's a black mouth spewing white hate as it comes out. I believe Joy Reid said that about Winsome Sears.
Joy Reid said that.
Yes. Well, Joy Reid's an idiot.
Well,
I mean, like a double idiot.
Is she one of the chicks on The View?
No. She's on MSNBC or CNN.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, she has her own talk show.
Okay.
They all run together.
I'm thinking about Joy Behar.
Joy Behar, yeah.
That's who I'm thinking.
No, Joy Reid's a black lady. Joy Behar's white.
I got you. Okay, I'm thinking about Joy Behar. No,
and the funny thing, ironically, neither one of them are joyous.
No.
Your parents way missed the mark on naming those kiddos.
Yeah, well, the activity should have gone a different way with them, and we wouldn't be putting up with this, right?
You should have called them Sour or something. Sour Behar, Sour Reid. Yeah,
not sourpuss.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Sorry.
Well, welcome to podcasting. You can say stuff like that. No, I'm just kidding.
No. Well, listen,
my first time on, I've already stirred up.
You've already stirred the pot.
I think you first I think you're the first person on this podcast that have said something you can't say on the radio.
I think you can say sourpuss.
You can say sourpuss on the radio.
It's kind of like, it depends on the context you say
It's the context in which you say it.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
Just like George Carlin's 7 Dirty Words, it depends on, there's a couple of them that are the in-between words, and it depends on how you say it.
Exactly. You know.
Okay.
Good. If you don't know what that is, Google search it. There's probably some people listening going, who's George Carlin?
We try to keep the podcast PG-13-ish.
Yeah, I would say, every once in a while, and I will say, and I will admit, when, especially sometimes when I get on the soapbox and the soapbox starts to get pretty tall, there are times that every once in a while something that rhymes with duck will come out of my mouth.
It gets a little emotional.
Yeah, but it's very rare, and it's not. It's never just a cuss. I don't ever cuss to cuss. It's always for inflection.
Right. There's
Emphasis
a purpose behind it.
Yeah, there's a purpose.
Damn it.
Yeah.
So anyway, where were we going with that? Anyway.
Well, we were talking about, I think, just the fact this is all new and fairly new, and then I'm throwing in on the mix. So.
This format of doing Get It Right is new, so we'll see how this works out, which I think it's going to work out spectacularly. Especially if we start to really gain some audience.
What we ought to do is get a little logo thingy that goes about right here that says "Get It Right." Can you install that?
We can do that, or we could put it up here. I mean, we could do all kinds of stuff. We can put it in the analog world, digitally add it.
That's what I mean.
Put it right in front of my
Yeah. Of course, this is a really cool little space here. I like this.
It is.
This is really well set up, and we're doing this on a Rodecaster. So if you don't know about podcasting, you don't have to have $10,000 worth of equipment.
Not anymore.
You can have a Rodecaster, but that's what Mike and I have used. Yeah. And this is nice because we've been doing it in my office.
Oh, yeah.
At Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles, 401 North Scott, downtown Wichita Falls since 1966.
EddieHillsFunCycles.com.
Yep, and we're at 4020 Ray Road.
That's right.
In Wichita
Upgraded.
Falls. Yes.
MacTech solution.
Upgraded, but a different place. We're just trying it out.
No, it's an upgraded space for this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This was my project that I've been theorizing about all year when I was working from home and everything. Mike and I would do the radio through remotely from my computer, and then I was imagining all this stuff, and then I finally was able to see it through. I just haven't personally been able to use it a lot, but Mike has another podcast that he's doing with his real estate broker. It's called Smooth. I said Smooth.
Smooth Moves.
Not Smooth.
It's a smoothment.
Woo,
Strategic Moves with Lou, not Smooth Moves with Lou. Yeah. So anyway, that's Lou Italis from Strategic Realty, which is, again, his broker as a real estate agent. But
that is correct.
Anyway,
yes.
so they've been using it more than I have. Yeah. So, but I'm glad to offer this up, and we've been talking, and I've had this, and it's like, man, let's do this. So I'm glad that Trey and Mike invited me on.
And this is kind of an extension for a lot of people who don't know. Mike has been on broadcast for many, many, many years. Yeah. And then Mike and I and Terry have all broadcast together. Generally, Terry goes on Friday. I go on Thursday for many years. And then occasionally we have been together, and it's always been really good. Mm-hmm. And the broadcasting is going to the way of the dodo bird. And so this is going to be the next iteration of kind of that broadcast.
It is. By the time you see this podcast, likely I will have already made the public announcement that my radio show is coming to an end at the end of December. It will officially wrap. So
well, hey, but we're gonna help anyway.
That's right.
To keep this thing going, and I think Mike he's the radio broadcast professional. And makes us look good.
He's a professional pronouncer.
He makes Trey and I look good and sound good because I don't know. I've learned a little bit about that Rodecaster, and we have a couple of little things to enhance the sound over there that we're going to, it'd be more on the back end side of things. But anyway, but we're having fun.
The whole thing about podcasting in the last 4 or 5 years, it has just exploded. And really the last 2 years, it's really, really exploded. And we know there's a lot of podcasts out there to choose from. You got a lot of options. The cool thing about podcasting, though, is you can do this from anywhere. You can have an audience that is everywhere, and it's an on-demand audience. So you don't have to tune in at a certain time of the day or afternoon or evening to listen to it. You can listen to it when you want to. You can take it with you wherever you go. listen to it in the car, listen to it, Apple AirPods that you picked up at MacTech Solutions at 4020. Shameless plug.
Right.
Sorry.
While you're riding the motorcycle you bought over
Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles.
to your house that you bought
for me.
Mike. So there you
See
go.
how this works?
And you're right about that as well. It's one of those deals. You also don't have to listen to somebody want to tell you about the weather. You don't have to listen to somebody who's trying to get in that commercial break or. Or if you're into the music thing, you don't have to listen to the top 10 that you're 40, top 40 or whatever.
But at the same time, we think we would like to have some sponsors because that would be kind of, if we could, but we're doing it primarily because we enjoy doing this. Right. And Mike has been fortunate for all these years. We actually get paid to do what he likes to do, but I get paid to do what I like to do. And I know Trey does what he does. It's certainly... As much as we do it, it's nice to get paid for sure because that is our livelihood. But the fact that this is something that's sort of now Mike has gone into a couple of different professions separate from radio, so this is able for him. It's not his primary income source anymore, and so we're all able to come here and the three of us together and have some fun with it. At least that's what I hope.
It's my creative outlet. That's what I tell people all the time. My job. Running a business is running a business, and no matter how much you love it, it's still running a business, and which is great. But you don't have the creative outlet, and that's what this is. This is my creative outlet.
Yeah. Well, I started looking at other options for, how to make a living. A couple of years ago, I really started taking some serious looks at some things and examining some possibilities, and I had to come to the realization that I'm not nearly good looking enough to be a stripper. So.
Thank God.
Prostitution's
everybody just shut off. everybody click the audio visual off the audio.
He won't. Yes. Yeah, he won't do it.
He won't strip here.
No nudity will be seen here today. Not from me, anyway. And I guarantee you, neither one of these guys. So anyway, but I got to looking at some other options of what to do, but podcasting has, I think, for at least the last year, been a real target of mine, and I know you guys as well. As you said, you've been looking at it, and it's where we're headed. It's where broadcasting is headed. Podcasting is going to be. It's not the future. It's now. It's here. It's not going away. I think more and more broadcasters, more and more broadcasts are going to transition over to podcasting, or at least at the very minimum, podcasting is going to become a vital component, a partner with the over-the-air stuff. But I think more and more the over-the-air stuff is going to start to kind of wane a little bit, and everything's going toward podcasting. So.
But the other thing is this could be done live. In theory, we could do this, at a particular time or whatever. But then, given that what we are is we're all three business owners, and we're very busy. So for now, at least. I think doing this as a recorded session and then putting it out there to let you listen whenever. Maybe we could consider some special live things every once in a while, and we'll try to let people know. And I think too is just this is sort of kind of just expanding on what we're doing now. Is we would like to see try to capture names and things, like maybe email addresses. So I think we're gonna try to figure out how to capture you from maybe help. So that you can spread the word too, right? Because that's how podcasting works. That people share it and all that. We're going to probably get it out on Facebook, get it out on all the different places, and then hopefully get you guys to help us get the word out.
Is it still Facebook or is it Meta now?
Well, Meta is the parent company, and then it's still Facebook. But here's the funny thing: the other day I heard about it. Now that you bring that up, that Meta as the company that just was created is now coming down on Facebook about, I forget what the story was exactly, but apparently Meta is now criticizing Facebook for some things. They're looking into some practices. Isn't that like, you just came out of that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems a little, I'm not sure what the word is.
Seems like a lot of crap.
Yeah, well,
is what it boils down to.
No, it sounds like a virtue signaling maybe, or the idea that they've now Meta as this new company. Well, no, it's not. It's the same company.
It's the same damn people.
Sort of renamed a little bit. So I just think that a little hypocritical maybe.
And really, what a weird if you watched any of that video, that was weird. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just strange. It was a whole strange, weird thing.
Zuckerberg is a strange guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's very, very strange.
He's just a really rich strange.
Yeah, so and just to interject here, this is one of those cases that if we have time during the editing process, we could take a video clip of that and because we're talking about it and inject it as we're talking about it right here and show you kind of what we're talking about.
It'd be cool to run it so we can make fun of it live.
Oh,
it'd be like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
We could. There's an idea.
Yeah, I love that because it's funny because for years there was a couple of friends that I had like when we were younger, and we would sit there and watch a bad movie and just talk crap the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I saw that Mystery Science Theater 3000. I was like, wait a minute. We had an idea that just somebody was smart enough to monetize it instead of me.
Well, there you go. So,
Yeah.
And they do that on Facebook all the time. Is somebody's one part of the screen is the person watching and reacting, and the other part's the actual video.
Yeah.
So maybe we're going to have fun with this. At least I'm hopeful that we can have some fun with this. So maybe those things that we can do.
One thing I'd also think that'd be cool is if there would be a way for us to, like you said, capture people to email us questions or thoughts or comments or I'd like to get your take on this.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And that sort of thing. Because we do, I know that there are people who regularly listen to the radio show that I hope that we can get them over to the podcast.
Yep.
And like there's Mike from California, our buddy Tony Rios, a lot of people from California.
Over the years, I wish I had really seriously kept track, pardon me, of everybody. But over the years, I'm going to say conservatively, I've probably had 150 calls from the West Coast, actual callers I've taken on the air over the years. And in the last probably 5 years, at least a fourth of those have been in the last 5 years. The thing about it is most people that listen to radio shows never call in. They never will call in. People just don't do it.
It's a representative, small sample of the bigger audience.
Yes. So you can't gauge the size of your audience off phone calls, because most people won't call you. They won't do it for whatever reason. They feel like they're not going to sound good on the air, or they're uncomfortable with it. A lot of people are more introverted than they want to admit.
When I call in, even when I call in, occasionally I know you call in, and I've called in just driving down the road or something into the News Talk 1290 radio show while they're on. I'm not there, and I get a little nervous still, but I'm sitting there in the studio and don't even think twice about it. So.
I think there's maybe a bit of an uncomfortable nature about being on the phone and knowing that your call is on the air. But more and more calls from the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington.
And those people have to want to listen because it starts at 6:30 or 6 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah, so it's 4 a.m. out there.
Yeah, 4 a.m. out there. And so if they're calling in and like literally have had, like I said, our buddy Tony Rios from high school text me during the show and react to something that we said. It's like, yeah, he's listening, and so he's got to be up awful early to listen.
4:30 in the morning, listening to and they're listening. Obviously, they're not listening over the air because our terrestrial signal, that's over the air for you folks in Electra. That's in magical waves traveling through the sky. Anyway, the terrestrial signal obviously doesn't carry to Electra. But
or to California, for that matter.
To California, I'm sorry.
Well, sometimes it doesn't make it to Electra either.
It doesn't carry to California. Yeah. But it does, but the stream obviously is where they're listening, or they're listening on the mobile app. Because we've got both. The mobile app audience has grown exponentially, which is why I think podcasting is becoming such a huge thing. And it's going to be huge for us, because more and more people are getting their shows this way. They're not listening on the radio. They're not listening to in their car or at home.
Ironically, this is the first time we've been able to do visuals, because usually that's my joke is somebody you'll point to something. Everybody look at your radio really close because you don't see it. Now you actually can.
Now you can. So,
But also we got to keep in mind there are some that are going to be listening audio only, so we'll try to describe those things, but we also want to encourage you to figure out, once we figure out exactly how that's going to work, so there is a way for us to get the video and the audio on the podcast app, at least on the Apple Podcast. I'm just not sure how. We'll figure that out. This is all evolving.
I just thought about this. It's funny. You have the technology levels right here. Terry with the iPad, Mike with his phone, and I've got the paper.
He's got a piece.
So I'm the dummy Neanderthal down at the end there.
Actually, he does his own IT work because he's pretty. He's savvy. He just but he just prefers the analog method.
You're right. I'm still a paper guy. But it is typed. It is on a word processor. It wasn't actually like written in crayon like normal. Big Chief tablet.
1990. I started in college, and Trey will remember because he attended Midwestern State University.
Same year.
And I think they had one computer lab on the whole campus.
Yeah, it was in the library. As you walked in, it had like 7 or 8 computers or something like that.
And you would wait forever and ever and ever to get on a computer because that's what you did. You went in, you signed in, and when one opened up, your turn comes up, you sit down, you do your thing, and I think you were kind of on the clock too as to how long you could stay in there. So it got frustrating trying to type a paper in there. So I got a typewriter.
Yeah.
One of those, like an IBM.
Where you strike the key and the little thing goes.
Yeah. And the reason I did that is because I couldn't afford my own computer at the time. I mean, it was like, a new computer then was probably $2,000 or something like that. I don't know. It was way more than I could afford. And, this typewriter was like, $50 at the pawn shop or something. So, that's
See, I had a Commodore. I had a Commodore 128 because I got a Commodore 64 when I was probably 8th grade. And then I upgraded all the way up to a Commodore 128, baby. Ooh, but I still had that when we started college. And I had a printer, an old dot matrix printer.
Yeah.
And I had a little word processor of some sort on that Commodore. But the Commodore everything was DOS. So that's where I learned how to do DOS was playing with my Commodore.
Yeah. I know. Back in the day, I had my first computer in high school. But no, my first exposure to a computer was my mom's boyfriend was a doctor, and he had bought a TRS-80. Maybe we'll do a segment on old computers. Well,
I know the coolest thing I ever did, not coolest, but one of the things I always did with Commodore was I liked to go in and hack into the back of games, and everything was on floppy disk at the time.
Yeah.
So what you would do is you'd get your floppy disk, you'd hack into the high scores of the games, put your name on all the high scores, and make some of them that were like absolutely unattainable. Then you wanted to pass that floppy disk out and get everybody to copy your floppy disk. Also, on that 5 1/4, I can also remember the hack was you'd buy the single-sided 5 1/4,
and then notch it,
and you'd notch it on the other side, so you'd have double sides.
Yep.
But that extra notch from the factory was like an extra, I don't know, probably 37 cents a disc, where you could notch it for free.
Yep.
As long as you didn't get the disc pushed over, you had to hold it to the side, bang it to make sure that the part inside went away, and you didn't catch it.
Yeah. See, oh man, so many things.
That's it. And I never did
those were
anything
computer
like that.
hacks.
Yeah. I was still blowing up Hot Wheels cars with firecrackers when y'all were doing that stuff. So.
Well, I was war dialing. You know what that is?
No, I do.
War
not.
dialing.
War dialing. What the hell is that?
That's where you program your modem to dial out and look for computers that are on the internet on the dial-up days.
Oh wow, that was.
And it would detect the tone, and then we would write it to a file, and then we would later go back, and then we narrowed down. We'd let it run overnight, my friend and I, and then we would go back during the day and find that phone number and redial it, and then see what our computers responded to, and then see if we could get into it.
Oh wow,
into that system. Yeah,
that's pretty high tech.
I got all kinds of stories. So
isn't that illegal now?
It might be illegal. Hopefully, the statute of limitations.
There you go. Yeah,
I believe it does.
Yeah. I doubt they're going to come kick your door in for that, Terry.
Oh no, this current administration.
If I ran for office, it might.
Yeah,
but I'm getting it out now. It's documented. I'm admitting to it now. So when I run for president, then it's already out. So
none of us are dirty enough to run for president. None of us have enough crap in our background to run for president.
Yeah. And it's sad when you got to think about the politics. You almost feel like someone has to be corrupt.
Well, you're not. Okay, I'm going to say this. I don't think you can get to that level. And I don't know about corruption. Some of it is corruption, but some of it is just decisions you've made, people you've stepped on. You cannot get to in my opinion, I don't think you can get to the level of a presidency without shitting on somebody several people along the way.
And I think
you've burned people. You've had to have.
On a local level, you can just be a good guy or a good gal and get elected. You can just be a good person, and if you appeal to people a certain way, you can get elected on a local level. I think even on a state level, you can do. But what about congressional offices?
I think you've had to at some level burn some people. You've had to, because it's, and I don't necessarily mean it's been corruption.
No,
but it's been. But I think I just don't think that you could get to that level and not have
you
burned
can't be
somebody.
Mr. Nice Guy and get there.
Yeah, but it's semantics too, and because decisions are made. You have to make decisions. You make decisions every day in your business that may not be the popular decision among the employees or whatever, but it's the right decision for your business and for you. And if some people will take something like that and say, you burned me. And I think that's unfortunate. And we should, I try to avoid, letting somebody get away with saying like that. I know you're saying it in the context of this, but in a way it's perceived as being burned. But in reality, it's just, if you look at it objectively, it was a decision that was made and move forward. Now, some people will burn others. But burning bridges, we always talk about that, is try to at least maintain something. But that's also what you got to do in politics, don't you? Even if you do try to burn, let's say it could be considered as a burn, but it's like, I'm making a decision. In the school board, you guys had to make decisions that teachers didn't like, that administrators didn't like, that the public didn't like. Even the people who put you in, oftentimes.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about the amount of money you have to raise. You're going to have to sell your soul somewhere along the way, in my opinion, to be able to raise the amount of money, the millions of dollars in donations. And I'm not saying, when I say sell your soul, I don't mean that you're completely giving yourself up, but you have to kiss up. You don't have to kiss up to people or that you don't agree with or don't want to align with to make money to run for mayor or school board or maybe even state, even though the state is pretty bad. I mean, the lobbyists don't fool yourself. Their lobbyists are very, very strong, and lobby influence is very strong in Austin. But when you want to run on a congressional level, especially, the millions of dollars you have to raise, I don't know that you can raise that kind of money without aligning yourself or accepting something from somebody that probably does. Their values are probably not as pure as yours or the same level as yours. I just don't know that it's possible.
That brings up something here in my mind. So on a local level here, now those of you watching this podcast or listening to this podcast in other states, other cities, it may be different. Here in our local area, here in Texas, if you're going to run for mayor or city council, you don't have to declare a party affiliation.
No, in fact, it's not on the ballot. Yeah, there is no party.
Yeah.
Anywhere below the county level, anything from county level above, you go party. But if you're city council, mayor, or school board, there's no party affiliation.
Now that said, I think your political leanings do play a role on a local level more than they ever have before. If you're an extreme one way or another, people are going to know it. It's going to have come through in some form or another. It will have come through that you're extremely left or extremely right, or you're extremely maybe you're a communist. I don't know.
But it just won't. You're right. But it won't have it on the ballot.
Right.
You won't run it in a primary and that sort of thing, and you won't have a little D or R or whatever next to your name.
Yeah, like if you're going to, like in Wichita Falls, Texas, where this is based out of, if you want to run for mayor, you file as an individual to your candidacy. You pay your filing fee, and you're on the ballot. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. As long as you meet the deadline for the filing, you can get on the ballot. It costs you, I don't know, it's $100, $200. I have no idea what it costs these days for a filing fee, but it's probably somewhere between $100 and $200 to file to be on the ballot. And that's it. And there's no party connection at all. Right. Like Trey said, once you get to the county level, though, here in Texas, you have to declare a party affiliation.
You have to go through the primary process.
You have to go through the primary process, exactly. And now, I think right now we go to the national level. I think we've got a pretty good guy in Congressman Ronnie Jackson.
In our district,
yeah. I've met and I know everybody says this about their congressman or congresswoman is a great guy or gal. I'm telling you, I've talked to Ronnie Jackson on a very personal level. Off the air, no microphones on, no cameras on. I've talked to the guy. I've got to know him a little bit. I've interviewed him a dozen times at least. I think he's a really decent guy. He brings a lot to the table in being a retired Navy Rear Admiral, having that military background, that military experience. He brings a lot of things to the table that these days the typical politician doesn't bring to the table. We don't have nearly as many people with a military background involved in politics as we did, say, 40 years ago. So having someone with those chops going into it, I think, is a benefit to us. The other day I noticed we've got 5 retired Navy SEALs running for Congress this next November.
Yes.
They're going to be actually they'll be running in March in the primaries.
They're running primaries, yes.
And, if everything goes well, they'll be on the ballot in November. But 5 retired Navy SEALs. I think we've got more retired military stepping up to run for these political offices than we've had before. All 5 of these guys happen to be Republicans.
Right. And what they're looking at, I've heard that a lot of them are saying they're looking at accountability.
Yes.
They want accountability, and that's
yes.
because military is huge on accountability, and especially when you get into your special forces, your SEALs, your Green Berets,
right.
It's all about accountability.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, it has to. Well, I mean, you're
right.
Someone else's life is in your hands.
Right, literally.
Accountability is literally one of the top 3 things on that list of things you got to do. That you got to be responsible, and accountability goes to responsibility. So you have to. I think we have to, and when I say we the voters, we the public, we have to start demanding that in these politicians. I don't care whether they got a military background or not. We need to start demanding more accountability in these people. And I get it, when you're running for there's a lot of lip service when you're running for an office. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of promises made. But it's up to us to hold them to those promises.
Well, Terry, Terry's a perfect, and I'd like for Terry to speak on this because Terry is retired military.
Yes.
And Terry's also a very objective and very thoughtful person, which I appreciate. So using your, not just I'm a retired military, so I'm going to support a retired military person because you're not that kind of way, but from your objective, thoughtful person, what do you think a retired military person can bring extra to the table in an elected office?
Well, clearly, of course, I guess it depends on your values in that. If you value military service and all of that, but I value military service clearly, but as you kind of talked about, and we've talked about this before, the whole hero thing, God, that just drives me nuts. Everybody who served in the military is not a hero. The same as all the nurses and the doctors and all the healthcare workers were not all heroes this last year and a half, 2 years.
If everybody's a hero, nobody's a hero.
That's right.
So just because you have military service doesn't mean anything directly. That alone is not enough for me. But the fact that you had that experience, I think, gives you quite a bit of, at least if you believe that our nation's security is important, then it's going to certainly give you a perspective that you wouldn't otherwise have because you're on the ground. I didn't serve in Afghanistan or anything like that. I was never deployed. But these guys, obviously, these 5 SEALs, obviously, they've clearly seen action that I would have never even imagined. But I respect the fact that they're up and standing up and whatever. Now, that being said, not all military members or retired or veterans are of conservative mind either. Sure. We know that. But I think even if it didn't, as long as you're coming in with again, somewhat objective, at least try to show that you've got things and you do have, because you can take a position. I have no problem with somebody taking a position, but don't just take a position just because you're, don't be extreme. Just right.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's great. I think these are smart people. You don't become a SEAL without being pretty smart. Now, I think some of the SEALs are actually officers too, aren't they? Because I'm thinking that so many of them are educated beyond the normal. I say beyond the normal enlisted guy. Although realize they're enlisted people like myself who have a master's degree. So just because you're enlisted doesn't mean you're a dummy either.
Right. I think generally a lot of times enlisted, a lot of times like yourself, you probably got your degree after you join the military.
Oh, absolutely.
Whereas where the officers generally you have to have a degree before you go into the military. Is that correct?
Well, to become an officer, you have to have a degree,
right?
And but there are many prior service enlisted who got their degree while active duty, then moved into the officer ranks. And I had thought about that, but yeah. So I'm encouraged by the fact that obviously if these. Not that they could have done anything about Biden's decision to pull out so rapidly out of Afghanistan, but at least they have something to say about it. Now, do they have it at the strategic level that politicians and, in our country, that the politicians, the civilians do kind of set policy in the country? Unfortunately, we have, Biden in right now. But they at least can provide a perspective. And the more of them there are, the more likely it is to get up for votes and things, So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. And I like the group. Now, I wouldn't want everybody in Congress to be retired military because that's not good. I wouldn't want nobody in Congress to be retired military or whatever. You don't want everybody to be a lawyer. You don't want everybody to be a banker. You don't want everybody to be a doctor. You want what Congress was supposed to be was a cross-section of the United States, farmers, bankers, shopkeepers. That's why the House of Representatives was supposed to be 2-year terms. That's why it's 2-year terms, because the thought was, by our founding fathers, was this isn't going to be their job. This isn't going to be their profession. Right. They're going to leave the farm, go to Washington, help make policy and law for 2 years, and then go back to work.
Right.
Right.
And that's the whole point.
But most AOC, for instance, is making tons more money as a congresswoman than
rather than being a bartender.
Yeah, but that for her that was a raise. For a lot of the attorneys and things, the actual income is actually not as much. But then that makes you wonder. Well, then how are they maintaining their status quo?
Well,
how are they all millionaires?
Yeah. Look at the makeup of Congress. And you look at the number of people, not just in the House of Representatives, but also the U.S. Senate, that spend 25, 30, 40 years of their life in elected office. It was never intended to be a career field. It was never intended to be a career choice.
It would have been every 2 years.
Exactly. And this is why there was a time when I was dead set against term limits because I felt like the ballot box was sufficient to term limit anybody. But clearly, and I think in the last 10, 15 years, this has become more and more apparent, that's not going to be enough because some of these people simply will not walk away. And it's very, very difficult to beat an incumbent candidate. An incumbent candidate has two big advantages right out of the gate, especially if they've been in office more than 2 terms. Number one, they've got massive name recognition. And number two, they've got a massive war chest. The longer you stay in office, the easier it becomes to fundraise, the easier it becomes to attract those big dollars into a campaign. And of course, the name recognition thing. You may not know Nancy Pelosi when you see her, but you know that name.
Well, not only that, they get to campaign while they're getting paid.
Exactly.
That's the difference. And there's a lot of people that are trying to run for an office. They still may have to earn a living somehow.
That's right.
They have to split their time between what they normally do and running for office. Yeah. But you're sitting there, if you're like you said, Nancy Pelosi, you can go on 30 different shows, TV shows. You're getting paid while you're campaigning.
Yeah.
So it's a definite disadvantage to somebody trying to be the
convention of states.
Well, that is one way that may be the only way we ever have term limits for Congress. Is through the Article 5 Convention of States. We need 2/3, I believe, of the states to sign on to that.
Where are we at?
In order, the last I checked, I think we had 32 or 34 states. We're close. We're very close. But we need 2/3 of the states to sign on to agree to do a convention of states. Now, you got to be very careful with this because you do open the door to some unintended consequences with this.
Yeah, because whatever comes up, comes up.
And so you really got to be super careful with it. But I think that ultimately, if we really, truly want to see Congress term limited, it's going to take an Article 5 convention to do it.
Well, they're not going to do it.
No, they're not going to kill their own golden goose. Hell no.
Yeah.
They're up there just raking in the damn money hand over fist, man.
Well, I go back to, how are they all millionaires?
Exactly.
They're all. Now, I don't know that every one of them is right now, but the majority of people in Congress are worth more than $1 million after a period of time.
Yeah.
They're not making $1 million.
I'm not sure AOC is. She's
but she hasn't been there very long.
But yeah, this is her second term in office.
Right.
But even she's got apparently a couple of formidable opponents this time around that she's going to have to face off against. Well, that means she's going to have to spend even more money. That means she's going to have to raise more money.
Yeah, because she's not spending hers. It's not like she's writing a check. Well, they're raising. People are raising money.
How many of these politicians ever spend their own money? I mean, once you get above
Donald Trump,
the state level.
Yeah, famously, Donald Trump did as he got through the primaries. He spent every bit of the primary money was his own money.
Well, yes. and the little billionaire from Texas,
Ross Perot.
I think he.
How could you forget, Terry? How could you forget my name?
So, and of course, without getting on to that tangent, but Ross Perot was right in so many ways. But
was right.
anyway,
well, yes,
time will tell.
It's just bad when nobody's going to believe you when you go.
Well,
and talk like that.
And by the way, 15 states apparently is all that we've had.
15.
Yeah,
okay, it's fewer than I thought. I thought it was 30-something.
No, you need 34, and it looks like as of 2021, it's on Wikipedia and their website, both indicated 15. So,
well,
so we've got a ways. Yeah. Well, but
but Terry's actually looked at the website itself.
Yeah, it's saying
he verified.
Yeah, Mississippi on March 27th of 2019 apparently was the last one. We had a wave. Well, I say a wave. We had them starting. Georgia was the first in 2014. Alaska, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Indiana, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arizona, North Dakota, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Utah, and Mississippi. So those are the 15. Now they're the states where the Convention of States application has passed one chamber but not the other is New Mexico, Iowa, South Dakota, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and New Hampshire. And then in 2021, we have a whole host of other states that are considering it. So so that's of course we're almost the end of 2021. So.
Well, again, I think the only way we're going to have those term limits is through that convention. I don't think there's any way it's going. As Trey said, they're not going to do it to themselves. They're going to cut themselves off from the money. Yeah. And that's the thing, that the money aspect of being a lifetime politician is enormous. Yep. The money side of it is just enormous. It shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't. You shouldn't be able to – getting elected to office shouldn't be a career. It should be a public service thing. And you go and you do it for a time, and then you go away and you go do something else.
Well, and also I think that Congress ought to go away from the 2-year term. I think House of Representatives should be a 4-year term, because the problem is when you're at 2-year terms, first off, I think they should be limited. I think they should be limited to 3 4-year terms, or maybe 4 4-year terms, but maybe 3. But the reason a 4-year term is because when you're at 2 years, you're always running for office.
Right. Always in campaign mode.
Always in campaign mode. You don't have time to, in my opinion, you don't have time to dedicate the amount of time that you're supposed to get what you're getting paid for too, because you're looking for that next term. You got to look for that next dollar to run again.
What if they just said, "Hey, only 6 months out," or some sort of time limit on before you can actually do any sort of campaigning?
The problem, and I agree that that's a good idea, but the problem is what's campaigning. If you show up on Fox News, and are you campaigning or not campaigning, or what are you talking about? I think that's too hard to. I think that's too hard to final line. You might say you can only raise money during a certain time. You could do that maybe.
I think if you're in elected office and you're on television and you're talking about your reelection or alluding to your reelection, I think that clearly is campaigning.
Yeah, but who's gonna who's gonna enforce it? What's the enforcement gonna be? I mean there's a lot to that. I think.
What's the penalty going to be if you violate the terms of it?
Some guy come up with a hook like in the theater, Apollo Theater, and yank you off the stage, or do the gong show? Do the gong guy come out and gong you, or what? How do you stop that?
I don't know. So hey, what if we do? We're coming up on. We're at 45 minutes roughly.
Quickly, golly.
So do we want to go on at least get our little fun segments out of the way here, and
let's do that.
Let's do that. So you can start, I guess.
Yeah, this is this is something that we do on the radio show, and I do This Week in History and then Famous Birthdays, and then Terry does This Week in Tech History. So
all right,
we'll go ahead and do that. This Week in History, this is the week of, I guess today is 26. So this week, this calendar week.
He's still napping from that meal.
There you go. Still trying to get the turkey out of my system, right? 1791, the first cabinet meeting is held at George Washington's home in Philadelphia.
Oh.
1922, English archaeologist Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's King Tut's virtually intact tomb in Egypt. A lot of people don't understand. King Tut was a minor pharaoh in the annals of history. But the reason everybody's heard of King Tut is because it was the first intact tomb that we found, Pharaoh's tomb.
Yeah, most of the tombs have been looted.
Exactly.
Destroyed in some manner.
But there were pharaohs that did things that were historic, but King Tut was just there for a period of time. 1940, Woody Woodpecker debuts as the release of Walter Lance's Knock Knock. 1952, the only win ever recorded for the NFL's Dallas Texans, beating the Bears. A lot of people don't realize that before there were the Houston Texans, there were the Dallas Texans. They were in the NFL, I believe, for 2 years. They won one game, and they were in Dallas the same time the Cowboys were. The Dallas Texans left Texas, and they became the Kansas City Chiefs. Hank Stram owned the team. That's right.
Did not know that.
So there were two professional football teams in Dallas at the same time.
Well, that made me think of this morning. I heard, it was the Las Vegas Raiders.
Beat the Cowboys.
What?
Yeah,
Las
that's
Vegas
hard.
Raiders.
It's hard to believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Mind blowing.
1955, the RCA Records paying $35,000 to Sun Records for Elvis Presley's contract.
$35,000.
$35,000 is. Who do you think made out better on that one, right?
Tell you, and that contract immediately became worth millions.
Exactly. On this week, 1963, JFK was assassinated. LBJ was sworn into office as the 36th president of the United States.
At the same time, the governor of Texas, John Connally, was wounded in the same limousine.
Right.
Some theorized by the same bullet that struck and killed Kennedy. There's that single bullet theory, which I think has kind of been dispelled a little.
If you watch the movie JFK, you'll see that. Kevin Costner does the whole thing on it. 1979 on this week, Pat Summerall and John Madden broadcast a game together for the first time, and then became the most legendary duo for football broadcasting.
I wish we could get them back.
1980, Sugar Ray Leonard regains his WBC welterweight boxing crown by beating Roberto Duran in New Orleans in the No Mas fight. Roberto Duran quit, I believe, in the 8th round, if I'm correct. Yeah. 1986, 20-year-old Mike Tyson becomes the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing. If you don't remember, that guy was scary.
Well, isn't he trying to come back or do something? I've seen him in
he's doing some celebrity boxing. Yeah. There's a lot of these guys that are doing celebrity boxing now. Yeah, he and Evander Holyfield fought, and it was a fecal matter show.
Hell, he's 55 now.
Yeah. That's right. Well, he was 18 years old in 19. Let's see, he was 18 years old or 20 years old in 1986. So if you do the math, yeah.
So 35 years ago, yeah.
1990 this week, Margaret Thatcher announces her resignation as British Prime Minister. What a lot of people don't realize is it was the duo of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher that really brought the Soviet Union down. Of course, Britain couldn't have done it by themselves, and we probably could have done it without Britain, but it made a huge difference, those two teaming up and being such staunch allies.
Yeah. Well, the two biggest political powerhouses on the planet came together to try to defeat communism.
That's right.
Yeah, and just that popped into my head when we were talking about that was the video that Peter Gabriel did that had Margaret Thatcher, a puppet. And Reagan.
The land of confusion, or this is a lady. Yeah, I could hear the song in my head.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So there you go. It just popped in my head. So sorry.
1991 this week, Freddie Mercury confirms he has AIDS the day before he dies.
Yeah.
At the age of 45. 1995, Toy Story, the first feature film to completely use computer generated. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
That's okay.
But I forgot. I screwed up on that one. Let's see here. 2013, Frozen is the highest grossing animated film of all time. is released in this week. 2020, U.S. General Services Administration officially begins Joe Biden's transition, declaring him to be the apparent winner, and Joe Biden introduces his new cabinet. And on this week in 2020, U.S. President Donald Trump pardoned his former security advisor, Michael Flynn, as guilty of lying to the FBI. Wow. Celebrity birthdays. If it is your birthday this week, then happy birthday. And if it is your birthday, you share a birthday with these famous and sometimes infamous people. Goldie Hawn is 75 years old today.
Oh, yeah.
Where has she been? She was in everything for a while, and then she just kind of dropped off the face of the earth.
Disappeared, yeah.
Troy Aikman is 54 years old this week. He's the quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Overrated, I'll be honest with you. Troy Aikman was a really good quarterback in a great system. When Troy Aikman did not have a great system around him, he wasn't like a John Elway, Joe Montana, Dan Marino guy who was going to make something happen out of nothing.
And how much more of he and Joe Buck do you have to endure?
Yeah, really. I'm not a big Joe Buck fan.
I
I don't mind Aikman, but Joe Buck is 30. Scarlett Johansson's 36 years old today, and Mark Ruffalo is 53 years old today. This week, yes, yeah, you're right, correct. I keep saying that. I'm used to saying that. Yeah, both of those. The reason it's ironic is both of them star in the Marvel films. Mark Ruffalo is which, by the way, Mark Ruffalo being the Hulk is a laughable thing because Mark Ruffalo is such a puss. But Scarlett Johansson is a Black Widow or one of those characters in Marvel.
Maybe she would make better sense as the Hulk.
There you go.
The Hulkstress.
Jamie Lee Curtis is 62 years old this week.
I believe it.
Billie Jean King is 77 years old this week.
Wow!
At one time, one of the greatest number one.
There's a name you don't hear much anymore. Billie Jean King.
Well, so we're watching this TV show right now called Fresh Off the Boat.
Okay,
it's on not Netflix, but Hulu or whatever. But it's a Chinese family came over.
I think it used to be on ABC.
Yeah, it was an ABC show. And anyway, they had Billie Jean King on there. So they bring in these older stars that you hadn't seen in a while. So it's kind of interesting in that way. But anyway, that's there. And then what was it? Who did she beat?
Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs, yes. That's what.
Yes.
So it's kind of like Love Boat used to be. Love Boat used to that was Love Boat. They bring the some of the.
If you watched Love Boat in the early 80s, I guess it would be. You saw lots of famous people from the 50s. People that you when we were kids, we didn't know who they were, but they had been ultra famous in the 40s and 50s.
They were people our parents would have seen in movies. Yeah. Fantasy Island, I think, was kind of the same way.
Same way, that's right. Miley Cyrus is 28 years old today. What a train wreck. Or this week. John Schottner is 59 years old today. He's the Papa John pizza guy.
Oh. Yeah, used to be.
You talk about a guy he cashed out, he did fine. You talk about a guy that got set up. I heard him interviewed on a podcast, ironically, and he was set up by Roger Goodell. Is what he claims is he was set up by Roger Goodell to fail because he was standing up to Roger Goodell over the wokeness of the NFL, and basically what John Schottner, what happened to him was he used the N-word when he was referencing that Colonel Sanders used it all the time. He wasn't using it and people, somebody took it out of context, and all of a sudden he said it, so he was canceled. Christina Applegate is 49 years old today. So we grew up with her.
From Married with
Children. That's right.
Is she ever in anything else?
Yeah, I think she actually did a like a sitcom later on, like in her maybe 30s and 40s.
Well, and she's got a show, and it might be a Netflix. It's either Netflix or Hulu. I can't remember. It's called Dead to Me, and I've seen about 6 or 8 episodes of it. It's a little weird. It's about as far removed from her Married with Children character as you can get. Let me tell you that.
Well, Tina Turner is 81 years old today, and Ike Turner's writing in hell, so.
Yeah.
Zachary Taylor was born on this day this week in 1784. Of course, he was our 12th U.S. president. Joe DiMaggio was born this week in 1914.
Joltin' Joe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Charles Schultz was born in this week in 1922, the Peanuts cartoonist. Bruce Lee was born this week in 1940, died in 1973, and the great Jimi Hendrix was born this week in 1942, and died in 1970. So that's a lot of people famous folks that you share your birthday with if your birthday's this week.
It's a bunch of them. Bunch of them. All right. So Terry and I do this thing on Fridays we have on the radio for several years now. We call it Stump the DJ. He'll give me something happened on this date, and I have to try to guess what year it is. And I usually suck at it badly because I'll guess something that I'll be 20 years off or something. Okay. Every once in a while, I nail it.
And it has to do with tech. Of course, yes, Terry's in the tech business. That's why I screwed up, and because I actually try to do that. I try to keep the tech stuff out when I'm doing This Week in History or This Day in History. If there's something that I know Terry's going to cover the next day, I don't put it in here, and I screwed up.
Right.
Well.
So
let you slide this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So November 21st of what year was the internet really born? It was called the ARPANET back in the day. And they were a little less than a month after the first test message was sent. The first permanent link on the ARPANET is established between UCLA and the Stanford Research Institute. So
the internet.
ARPANET, which
or
became
ARPANET.
the internet, right? So
okay.
1985 is what I'm guessing.
I'm going to go with 1989.
Sorry, guys, 1969.
What?
Yes, way back. Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yeah, it was but it's not. It's not really the internet as we know today necessarily, but it was certainly the beginnings of it. And the idea was to decentralize all of the nodes of this network because it was going to be ARPANET was Advanced Research. I'm trying to read something agency, blah blah blah. Anyway, so bottom line is it was really going to be for military use. And so they wanted to have so that if any one node if you took a nuclear strike up in the Northeast, then that doesn't take out West Coast.
So let me ask you now: what year did the World Wide Web, the WWW, wasn't that in the 80s?
Well, no. Well, the WWW part of the World Wide Web was Tim Berners-Lee back in you're gonna have to hold me to probably the 90s, late.
Oh, I thought it came out in the 80s.
It was early 90s because the internet itself, as we know it, the actual protocol, the TCP/IP protocol, was in the 80s, I believe, was evolving through that time. But the actual WWW piece of it was certainly early 90s.
I'm going to keep throwing things in there till I'm right. So I'm going to Google me right. We need to have a new Google thing instead of Google to check your Google. Need to have a separate Google me right to where you say something
Google
and then you hit Google and make yourself right on that.
Right. Well, and as we mentioned earlier, November 22nd I'll throw it out anyway. Of what year was Toy Story?
1995.
And it was the first all computer generated movie. And
by the way, a good movie. Not this. Let me tell you something about these Pixar movies, folks. You may say they're for kids, and yes, they are geared for kids. These are well-written feature films.
Right.
Not all of them,
but
some of them are.
Yeah, they have, just like in the old cartoons that we used to think, Tom and Jerry and Woody Woodpecker and all of these had more than just for the kids. It was actually so that the parents would be willing to sit there and watch. Yeah. Because remember, you didn't have a phone that you could put your earphones on and watch and do whatever you want while the kids do it, or vice versa. You can throw a kid on a device now and watch it. But back then they had to appeal to the parents. And in order to get the parents to the movies, so they have to appeal to both the parents, the adults, and the kids. So.
You watch the old Bugs Bunny. Oh, yeah. Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn. Some of that stuff, it was kind of edgy.
Oh yeah,
for its time, and but it was done in such a way that it was. Kids, I mean, we grew up watching, those cartoons on Saturday mornings, on TV. And we were watching stuff on TV as kids that our parents would have gone to see in a movie theater. It would have been a cartoon feature before the feature film, You'd see a, Woody Woodpecker cartoon before the Roy Rogers film played or whatever.
Yeah, that reminds me of, in Fort Worth, there was a pizza place down there. Oh, gosh, I can't remember it. It was on Camp Bowie Boulevard. But in any case, it was a pizza place, and they had a movie theater, and they would play all of the cartoons and everything, Woody Woodpecker and the whole bit. It was always kind of fun to watch, but it was just all they did. They didn't watch a movie and then traditionally, but it was kind of fun to sit there in the movie theater and eat pizza and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think didn't one of the Mr. Gaddies here in town at one time have a huge one of the first big screen TVs that like filled up a whole wall?
I think it was one at the mall.
And they would play they would at times they would play all kids shows during their buffet.
Yeah. There was a Mr. Gaddies, for those of you that have any clue about our local mall here. Kind of where what's the Mexican restaurant there? On the Border. Kind of where On the Border was, kind of in that corner.
I thought it was down a ways. I thought it was like where the Boot Barn place is.
It might have been. It might have been, but for some reason I think it felt like it was more. Maybe they just had a sign in the.
I think they had a sign. Yeah, I think there was down a little farther, but there were two Mr. Gaddies, and both of them had massive screens.
Yeah,
and it was amazing to have a big screen like that. I mean, because we're talking about in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
like they have a screen on the wall.
Wow. Yeah, it was huge. Yeah.
So, all right, next one. November 23rd of what year was World of Warcraft? Now, did you ever? Are you a gamer? No. Okay, I didn't think so. But
Pac-Man.
Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard
World of Warcraft.
You almost can't watch TV and not heard of it. They run like commercials on TV and stuff.
Well, it's still going, I guess. So, what year was that released? November 23rd of what year?
2004.
Boom.
Sorry. That's fine. That's fine because I was going to say 2008, so I would have been obviously wrong. So it doesn't matter.
All right. So the next one. So you remember Netscape? Did you like Netscape? Did you use it?
No, I never used it, but I remember it.
Yeah. Well,
it was like one of the first internet browsers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was one of the first. But technically, you were supposed to pay for it if you weren't using it in a school or educational environment. If you're going to use it in a commercial environment, you're supposed to pay for it. But it's always like, how do you pay for it? You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, remember in the days of the browser wars, you had. Basically, Netscape was the big kahuna. Of course, AOL was part of all of this, and they had their own browser.
Right.
And then Internet Explorer came on the scene, and because they had a server to go with it, they sold a server with all these capabilities that were not available anywhere else. And so that given the popularity of Windows, because Windows was shipping with Internet Explorer, that made the web browser more important in those features. If you had to have the Internet Explorer to have it work the way you want it to, right? So then, so Netscape lost a lot of market share and everything. So AOL bought them though. So AOL bought them on November 24th of what year?
Trey, you take the first shot.
1991.
2002.
1998. And so what? But also something to note here. So more recently, Microsoft has lost the browser war. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Microsoft Edge is the current web browser. You know about you get that now. That's what Microsoft's been pushing you to. But did you know that Microsoft Edge is based upon Chromium, which is really the code base that's open source that Google put out for Chrome. Now, there is a big difference on Chrome. They will watch what you do and everything you do. Whereas Chromium, which is Internet Explorer is based on, is much more private, if you will, has more privacy capabilities. So something to keep in mind as I'm using it even on the Mac. But the server, the Internet Information Server that Microsoft had is no longer a thing. And at least the capabilities it needs to have to support unique things for Internet Explorer. So they've gone more standards based. So that's good for the rest of us that most of our websites will work right.
Speaking of AOL, how many billions of those those discs do you think they sent out?
Well, they were floppies, and then they went to CDs.
There are billions and billions of them rotting away in landfills now, very slowly. And they will be for the next 10,000 years.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know how long it takes for a CD to degrade in the ground like that, but probably
long time.
A long time.
All right.
But they would mail them out. You get them.
You get them all the time.
Multiple.
Just unsolicited CDs in the mail.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. November 25th of what year was Napster? You remember Napster? Acquired by a company called Roxio. Remember, because basically it was really the assets, the logos and all the software and everything.
Napster famously was sued by Metallica. I always thought it was funny is you would think this heavy metal crazy band, they're the kind of leading the charge on suing people like that. You know, we wouldn't just. It just didn't seem like it fit.
Right. Well, they wanted their money, which
exactly that makes sense.
So,
but you always just think of those heavy metal, those kind of anarchy crazy guys. Like no, they're astute business people.
So historically, what happened is maybe if you remember now is you could download songs for free, quote free, off the internet with Napster. And the way it worked is that Trey here would have his CDs and he would rip them. That term, remember ripping them and basically convert the CD into MP3s. And then it would go into a library, his local library on his computer, and he would turn on Napster, and Napster would offer to upload. It would actually use your bandwidth. And so that's why some things would download very quickly because you had good internet, and somebody else would have dial-up AOL or something, and it would take forever to get a song, or if you got it at all. But basically, so Mike would go and get his CD collection and put it out there, and I want to go search for a few songs. I might get one from Trey, and I might get one from Mike, and it would download onto my computer. That was the only way without buying the entire CD, or I guess there were still 45s available back then, but not anything new was coming out on 45. So the only way to get me a song for my movie that I wanted to make, my iMovie with my iMac back in the day, I wanted to make a movie for my squadron on base that I'd shot video of one of our picnics, and it was Christmas time now, and so I wanted to do a video of the year and all that kind of stuff. And so we had fun with it, but I needed something, so I found a couple of songs that I wanted to put in my video. That's the only way I could have done it. And so anyway, there, November 25th of
That's
what year?
twice during this podcast he's admitted to breaking the law.
I know.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Mike. What year?
98.
I'm going to say 2008.
2002. And here's another little snippet here. Roxy was the first company to attempt to use the Napster brand for music service, renaming Press Play to Napster 2.0. In September 2008, however, Best Buy purchased Napster service for $121 million before merging it with the Rhapsody service in December 2011. Which I don't know if Rhapsody is they still around. I don't know. All right. November 26th of what year was Microsoft trademarked? Bill Gates and Paul Allen did this, of course, because they're the original people who started Microsoft.
Take the first
1973.
shot. I'll go with 75.
1976.
Oh,
and
you were closer.
Originally, it was Micro Soft, but then they took out the dash apparently. Let's see here. Then finally, finally, November 26th of what year was the MP3 patented?
Oh.
U.S. patent 5,579,430 is granted to the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany for a, quote, digital encoding process.
Fraunhofer.
1992.
1994.
1996, actually.
Wow.
So there you go. And so they had been working on this kind of thing as far back as 1977, and eventually became MP3 in 1987, and they were finally awarded the patent in Germany anyway in 1989, in the U.S.
It's amazing how much of this stuff had its origins, how much of it started when we were children.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it took years and years and years to come to fruition and become a thing. Anyway.
Cool.
Well, there we go. I guess we'll wrap up the podcast here with that on that note. And guys,
great way to wrap it up.
We appreciate you watching, listening, however you get this podcast, on Spotify, Anchor FM, hopefully Apple Podcasts at some point here. We want a multitude of ways.
Keep doing downloads, and that'll get us on Apple.
That's how you got to do it, guys. Just keep downloading these shows and keep watching and keep telling your friends about it. Share it with your friends.
However you end up getting it, because I'm assuming we're going to figure out a way to get it on this video in particular because right now we already have the
audio,
the podcast, the audio part of it already out there. It shows up on iTunes, which you just go search for. So if you're watching this, share it, and then look up the podcast audio part of it and subscribe there, because there's a lot more out there right now in the library older. Of
And
the
we have a
previous
Facebook
shows.
page, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
There's,
So
there's
we're
a Facebook page as well, and so you can link through there and get it
So
as
well,
well.
that's a little bit. Okay, so that's where this podcast or this video, whatever podcast, video podcast, whatever you want to call it.
Video cast.
Yeah, if you're a purist,
Video
the video part of this is not a podcast apparently.
Right.
But hey, come on,
It's a video podcast. Right?
Yeah, this
Cut
is,
us some slack.
Yeah,
man.
a podcast. All these terms change over time and evolve in terms of definitions. But in any case, we're gonna share this because I would like this to really take off and do. So we're all gonna share it. So I guess you got to get me admin.
Yeah, absolutely,
so I can upload.
because I don't have a clue how to do it. So
And we're
I know how to
going-
build the Facebook page. I know how to stick stuff on there, but that's it.
we are going to redefine this industry. I'm telling
That's
you.
it, man.
We're going to redefine this thing. In 10 years, you're going to look back and go, those guys were pioneers and they really changed it.
Pioneers and crap.
And we won't forget our people.
That's right. We will
All
bring,
the little people.
we will bring you with us. You will be part of the family. Once you're in, you're in.
That's right.
That's it. You know?
Ask me about my business.
All right. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves. God bless you. We'll see you down the road. It's Get It Right with Mike and Trey. Terry.